You know your room, every corner, every sound. You can close your eyes and count the shadows, your coat on the door, the chair by your desk, the lamp. You know what belongs. But what happens when there's one more shadow than there should be? What if that shadow doesn't move when you do, doesn't belong to anything you own or anyone you know? This is the story of Kyle Rowan, a quiet college student who learned the hard way. Sometimes the last shadow in your room isn't yours, and when you finally notice it, it's already too late. Kyle had just moved into his off-campus apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was cheap, and best of all, it was his. One bedroom, a cramped kitchen, and a window that overlooked the rusted fire escape. The kind of place with creaky floorboards, stubborn pipes, and old wallpaper that peeled like dried skin. Still, it was better than the dorms. He never believed in the supernatural. He chalked creaks up to bad plumbing and cold drafts to poor insulation. But during his second week in the apartment, something shifted. It started small. At night, while lying in bed, he'd get the sense that something was off. He would glance at his wall where his desk lamp cast soft shadows of the furniture. Something about them felt crowded, like there was one too many. The first time he noticed it, it was around 3 a.m. He woke from a dreamless sleep, drenched in sweat. He didn't know why. There was no sound, no reason for him to wake up. But as he sat up and rubbed his eyes, he saw it. A shadow. It stood near his closet door, too tall and narrow to be his jacket, too still to be anything ordinary. He blinked. The shadow didn't move. He switched on the lamp. The room filled with light, and the shadow vanished. He let out a nervous laugh. "I need to sleep more," he muttered. But even as he lay back down, he noticed something he hadn't before. The corner where the shadow had stood, it was colder, noticeably colder. The next night, the shadow was back. Same place, same hour. This time, Kyle didn't turn on the light. He stared at it, eyes wide in the darkness, trying to convince himself it was just a trick of his imagination. But it didn't feel like a trick. It felt like watching. He felt exposed, like something was studying him, unblinking, waiting. He told himself he wouldn't look again, that maybe some ambient light from the street was hitting something weird. But as the days passed, the feeling grew worse. That cold spot started creeping closer to his bed. The air felt thick, heavy, like the room was pressing down on him. And the shadow, it began to move. It never moved while he was watching, but its position changed. One night it was near the closet. The next it was near the desk. Then, horrifyingly, it was at the foot of his bed. It didn't make a sound, didn't breathe, but it waited. Kyle tried to record it. He set up his phone with the flashlight off and hit record before falling asleep. When he played the footage back the next morning, he didn't see anything at first, just grainy darkness. But about 2 hours in, the footage glitched, and when it resumed, there was a shape. Not quite human, not quite smoke, just a tall, black smear across the screen. It stood there for a full 20 minutes, unmoving. Then, just before disappearing, the camera picked up a faint whisper. "Don't look at me." Kyle froze. He stopped sleeping. Coffee kept him barely functioning during the day, but the nights were unbearable. He kept the lights on. He played music. Nothing helped. The shadow would still appear just outside his vision. One night, he snapped. He stood up in bed, turned toward it, and yelled, "What do you want?" There was silence, and then it moved, not toward him, not away. It mimicked him, moved in a slow, deliberate mockery of his movements. It tilted its head, raised a hand, but there was no reflection, no outline of a body, just a living absence, a hole in the air that didn't belong. Kyle stumbled back, his knees giving out as he crashed onto the bed. He shut his eyes, whispering to himself, "It's not real. It's not real." Then the voice came again, a whisper right next to his ear. "You finally saw me." He turned on every light, packed a bag, fled to a friend's place, and swore never to return. But his roommate was out of town, so Kyle was alone that night in a strange room. It felt safer at first. Until around 3 a.m., he was lying on the couch when he noticed the shadows on the far wall, the same coat rack, the same lamp, and one extra shadow that didn't move when he did. He wasn't home anymore, but it had followed him. It always starts the same way. A flicker of movement just out of sight, like your eyes are playing tricks on you. You tell yourself it's nothing, just a jacket hanging oddly, a trick of the light, a restless night of poor sleep. But deep down, you feel it. That slight shift in the air, the chill on the back of your neck, the creeping certainty that someone, or something, is in the room with you. Whatever you do, don't turn around. I never believed in the supernatural. Ghosts were stories you told around campfires. Demons were the stuff of movies. And shadows, well, shadows were just shadows. Until last summer. Until I moved into that quiet little house at the end of Mulberry Lane. It was a rental, older but clean, tucked between thick pine trees that swayed like whispering sentinels. I needed space, quiet, and time to work on my writing. That house gave me all three, at first. The first few nights passed uneventfully, except for the creaks you'd expect in an old place. But then I noticed something strange. Every night around 2:34 a.m., yes, that's specific, I would wake up suddenly. No noise, no dream to recall, just a jolt, like something nudged me awake. The room would be still, my digital clock casting a faint red glow, and in that glow I started seeing a shadow. At first it seemed like it was just mine, but as I lay there, too afraid to move, I realized something was off. It didn't match my position. It stood by the far corner of the room, unmoving, vaguely human in shape. I'd blink and it would vanish. The first time it happened, I told myself it was sleep paralysis. I tried to brush it off, but it kept coming back. Every night, same time, same spot, same feeling of eyes watching me in the dark. On the fourth night, I dared to turn on the light. Instantly, the shadow vanished. I scoured the room, closet, under the bed, behind the curtain. Nothing. But when I turned the light off and climbed back into bed, the room didn't feel empty. That night, I heard breathing. Faint. Slow. Not mine. I started leaving a lamp on, hoping light would drive it away. For a few nights it worked, or at least I convinced myself it did. But then the light started flickering. Once, twice, then out, completely. And there it was again. Only this time the shadow wasn't in the corner. It was closer. I could see the vague outline of a face, except there was no detail. Just a smooth black surface like smoke pressed into the shape of a man. It leaned in, almost touching the edge of my bed. I shut my eyes, afraid even to breathe. Eventually, I passed out from sheer terror. The next morning, I told myself I had to be dreaming. Sleep-deprived, maybe even hallucinating. I installed brighter bulbs, kept the hallway light on, played ambient sounds to drown out the silence. None of it mattered. The shadow still came. Soon, it began moving, slowly. Each night it would stand a little closer. I tried recording it, left my phone filming overnight. The footage always showed the same thing, me sleeping, and then static, at exactly 2:34 a.m. every time. A full hour of corrupted footage. After that, the video would return to normal, showing nothing out of place. But I knew better. Then one night I broke the rule. I turned around. I had been sitting in bed, back to the wall, scrolling through my phone, trying to stay awake until sunrise. The room was dead silent, not even the chirp of crickets outside. And then I felt it, the subtle pressure, like a presence settling behind me. I froze. Every instinct screamed not to move, but curiosity, or maybe some deeper, darker compulsion, made me twist my neck just slightly, just enough to glimpse behind me. It was right there, inches from my face, no features, no eyes, just blackness, pulsing like it breathed. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. All I remember is the overwhelming cold, not temperature, but a kind of emotional cold, like all hope and light were sucked out of the room. The next thing I knew, it was morning. I woke on the floor, covers tangled, my mouth dry and throat sore from screaming. But I don't remember making a sound. That day, I left the house. I didn't pack. I didn't lock up. I just drove. Anywhere but there. I crashed at a friend's place, told them I was having a rough patch. Didn't mention the thing. How could I? Who would believe me? That night I slept in a well-lit guest room, door locked, music playing. Safe, right? At 2:34 a.m. the music cut off. The room dimmed, and when I looked toward the far wall, I saw it again. The same shadow, standing motionless. It had followed me. It wasn't the house, it was me. You've seen it too, haven't you? That moment when you turn off the lights at night, and for just a second, something feels off. You tell yourself it's nothing, just your coat hanging on the door, a trick of the moonlight, your tired mind playing games. But what if that shadow lingering in your room isn't cast by anything that belongs to you? What if, no matter how many times you check, that last shadow stays, because it's watching? Don't turn around. Just listen. This story might be the last warning you get. Julian was a quiet college student, living alone in a creaky off-campus apartment. It wasn't much. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with peeling wallpaper. But the rent was dirt cheap. He moved in during the fall semester and didn't think much of the way the floorboards groaned when no one was walking on them, or how the air always seemed colder in his bedroom, even with the radiator on full blast. It started subtly. He noticed it one night while studying late. His desk lamp flickered, and in the moment of darkness, he swore he saw a figure standing at the edge of the room. A tall, lean silhouette by the window, motionless. When the light returned, it was gone. He laughed it off. Sleep deprivation, probably. But then it happened again, and again. Every night around 2:43 a.m., the exact minute, Julian would wake up to a peculiar heaviness in the air. Not a sound, not a breeze, just that strange, suffocating stillness. And each time his eyes would fall on the corner of his room near the closet, where the shadow stood. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It didn't seem to do anything but be there. At first he thought it was just the coat rack. He even moved it to another room. Still, the shape remained. One night, mustering courage, or perhaps just tired of being afraid, Julian flicked on the lamp mid-sighting. The light banished the shadow instantly. His room looked completely normal. But when he turned the lamp off, the shadow came back just as before, rooted in that same spot. Julian recorded it once, set up his phone to film overnight. The footage was useless. At 2:43 a.m., the camera glitched, static-filled and frozen. No sound, no video for a full 5 minutes. When it came back, Julian was still in bed, seemingly undisturbed. He stopped sleeping properly. He covered the mirror. He bought a nightlight. Nothing changed. The shadow came and stayed, and he grew to dread that ticking moment just before 2:43. It wasn't until one night, when his best friend Melanie stayed over, that he realized this thing wasn't just a trick of his mind. She crashed on the couch after they'd watched a movie, too tired to drive back home. Around 3 a.m., she came into his room, pale and shaking. Julian, she whispered. There was someone standing in the hallway. He sat up, his throat dry. What do you mean? I saw it. I thought it was you at first, just standing there. But it was too tall, and it didn't have a face. It just stood there, and then it stepped back into the darkness. Julian didn't tell her about the shadow. He didn't want to. Saying it out loud made it too real. The next day, Melanie left and never came back to the apartment. Things escalated. Julian began waking up not just to the shadow, but to soft whispers, like something was trying to remember how to speak. The air grew thicker, the lights more unreliable. The closet door would creak open by itself, inch by inch. And then came the night he heard his own voice whisper back to him. At exactly 2:43 a.m., it echoed from behind him. Cold, monotone. Don't turn around. His heart pounded in his chest. He felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise, a chill like frost running along his spine. He didn't move. He didn't dare. The voice came again, louder, more urgent. Don't turn around. He sat frozen, paralyzed by fear. Something was behind him, close, breathing. Then the power went out. Total darkness swallowed the room, and he felt it, something brushing lightly against his neck. A cold, whispering breath. He closed his eyes. The pressure lifted. The shadow was gone. Morning came. Julian packed a bag and left. He couldn't explain why he stayed as long as he did. Habit? Denial? Something darker? But that final night broke him. He moved back in with his parents, far from the city, far from the apartment. Life returned to normal. Sort of. The bags under his eyes faded. The air felt lighter. But every so often, around 2:43 a.m., he'd wake up and feel a shadow in the room that wasn't his.